welcome to Pricing College with your hosts, Joanna Wells
and Aidan Campbell.
So today we're going to talk about tips and tricks about menu pricing. Now, when you go into a restaurant or when you look at a menu, often you don't realise as a customer that there are certain things, pricing cues and psychological triggers being used in that menu price list. So we're going to discuss some of those tips because some people are really good at that in restaurants and others are not so good, and it seems like they're just guessing.
Yes, I suppose we're now in July 2020, and this is a point in time where many people have not been in a restaurant for a number of months. So maybe it's a good time, as restrictions are easing in many areas, to look out to see what tricks potentially could be being used, whether they're making you buy more regularly, or even just add an extra dessert to your order.
Okay, so the first one I'd like to talk about is one related to framing and anchoring. We discussed that in an earlier episode. What researchers of menu pricing have found is that people actually prefer or will spend more when you put the higher price item right at the front of the menu rather than leaving it at the back on the back page. So for instance, say it was a chef special with all the entrees, expensive entrees or degustation menus with a higher price. A lot of customers, you would think, would not want to see that, but research shows that if the restaurant puts that right at the front, then that sort of primes the customer to spend more.
Another simple one I like, and you see this a lot more often nowadays, is psychological research shows that when people see a number without a dollar sign or a pound sign or a euro sign, if they just see a number, somehow they don't see it as real money, almost like Disney dollars, and then potentially they may spend more. You'll also see more of it creeping in, whereby to even decrease the real monetary feel to the number, you'll see it just written as the number 5, not even a .00. So if you're in a restaurant and see 5 or 6 or 7, start asking questions.
Yeah, and then there's different research to debate that point, which says actually, people don't want to just see, the number like $6 or $10. They would prefer to buy, and more likely to buy if you put $9.99 or $5.99. So if you're going to put just, the number like $6 or $60, remember, you've got to take the pound sign off and take the tens and the units off as well to make it completely abstract. At that point, they're more likely to buy. But if you're going to have tens and units, then put the 99 on it, or the points, 47, which is another psychological price point.
Related to this, you'll also sometimes see the number, so not written. The prices will not be in the far right side of the page, whereas traditionally it would have been, all aligned, so you can clearly compare prices. Often you'll see the number will just be, Chicken Maryland, and then little space, and then number 5 or number 15 or whatever the price is. So it makes it a little bit harder to compare prices. This the actual psychological mentality behind this, I'm a bit uncertain about it, but it apparently is supposed to make you not compare prices as much and just pick the meal that you like the sound of.
So in terms of the actual price points and the distance between price points, now this isn't really important because what people often do, say if they're looking for a glass of wine, you may have 5 or 6 bottles of wine that are bought by the glass. So what people tend to do, they tend to look at all of those by the glass drink prices in a line and look at the lowest price point and the highest price point. And when they're doing that, they're actually making a value judgment about your restaurant based on that relativity. So you have to make sure that the space between those numbers represents not just good value. It's not cheap. We don't want it to be cheap. This is where you need to know where you fit in the market. So just think about that in relation to your brand and your price positioning, and in relation to other people's competitors' price points too. That will be a good reference point. but always think about who you're trying to target when you're thinking about that glass of wine, because that glass of wine actually is an anchor point for the rest of the drinks menu. So be very careful about how you price that glass of wine.
When people go out for dinner, they often like to believe they have free will and they're, very interesting individuals. But it's amazing how frequently we don't really want to choose. We want to be guided, or we are open to being guided as to what to choose. So very smart menus, they will highlight certain items. They will call them house specials, chef specials, special of the day. Highlight them in a certain way that even if you don't know they're being highlighted, you'll be driven towards them. Your eyes will move towards that selection, and you will end up choosing something that the house wants to sell. It could be because they've made a lot of it. It could be because the chef, they made too much of it and they need to get rid of it. But it's, be aware that you could be guided even without being suggested. You could be pushed to a certain product or service that the house wants to sell.
I can remember a good example about, the wine concept and, what price point's right. When I went on holiday to Fraser Island, went to a really very nice, Fraser Island's quite a chic place. People go there, you would say it's an expensive holiday, very exotic, etc. Standard night's hotel accommodation would be, from 1,000 plus in some of the hotels. And often it's like an all-inclusive sort of deal, but the restaurant you would have to pay for. And when I went into the restaurant, I looked at the menu price, and especially at the drinks price, and I looked at the range of prices for a bottle of wine. And it was something like starting from $47 up to $150. And I thought to myself, how strange, that they only went up to 150. Surely people in this hotel spending at least $1,000 a night would be prepared to pay more for a bottle of wine. And actually at that point, I realized that they hadn't really thought through their menu pricing, and that they were underselling the value of their drinks menu, but also, the whole experience of the holiday and the resort. So it made me think, oh, maybe the resort's not as good as it's supposed to be. Or maybe they were thinking, oh, you know what, it's an expensive resort, we'll discount off the drinks menu. But they don't necessarily have to do that. People are already willing to pay. So here you've really got to think about your menu pricing, your drinks pricing in relation to your target market.
And I think that really is a form of segmentation. An example I think of that reminds me of is the famous, he's probably more famous as a restaurant critic than as a movie director, Michael Winner, who used to write a restaurant column in the Times, the London Times. He also made a number of sort of forgettable movies called Death Wish, but we'll forget about those. He famously was in a restaurant and saw a very, very expensive bottle of wine at like £2,000 per bottle. He was an expert and he knew that he could sell those on for £5,000 a bottle, so he famously bought 10 of them. And again, that highlights that the restaurant is not segmenting their customer base, and potentially they're just not really knowledgeable about what they're selling.
So with all of this, yes, there are tips and tricks with menu pricing as there are in pricing in general. But really to make the most of them and to be strategic and make money from all of these things without, gouging your customers, without underselling yourself, you've got to think about your customers and segmentation. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet solution, but there are things like those tips that we've just gone through, psychological threshold pricing, even thinking about the weight of the menu itself. Apparently people will buy more if it's a heavier menu. Things like that do work and have been proven over time, but it's always better to think about your customer group in detail rather than just applying tips.
Yeah, I'll finish up with an anecdote because I'm better at anecdotes than actual detail sometimes. But in famous Parisian restaurants in years gone by, I don't know if this is how true this is, but the story was there were two menus, one for the lady and one for the gentleman. And the lady's menu would have no pricing at all, and then the gentleman had to face the pricing. Obviously, it's 2020, and so that those times are gone. But the question I'd like to ask, if we could do a statistical analysis, if the lady didn't know what the price was, would she order more expensive products or would she order less? And what would that say about the date and how much she liked the partner?
Oh, yeah, good point, Aidan. Who knows? Who knows? And it depends on where they are in the relationship. Would she even bother? Would she even raise the comment? Or would she just pay for the bill herself nowadays?
Times have changed and it is 2020, so yes, I suppose she would.
All right. Well, I hope that's helped and you've learned a bit more about menu pricing. And we look forward to speaking again. So thanks for listening and goodbye.
Have a great day. Bye.